Hi, this is Balázs from AFModular. This is AFNoding number 24, and in today's session we are going to continue our journey into generative sequencing and generative sound design and generative stuff. So we are going to make music without making actually music. Without further ado, here's our favorite software, and we are going to start building stuff. Actually, I'm going to delete everything. And I'm going to create a clock. And I'm going to check if this clock is 0 or not. If it's 0, then we do not do output 1. If it's not 0, we output nothing, or even the opposite, like this. And let's use an epsilon value of 0.1. 0.01 like this. So if we start the clock, we will output 1, and we can check for a change here. And if this turns 1, then the transport is running. So if I put a LED here and the gain in the end and set the volume to 0 and create the two outputs, if I press play, this will bring up. Yeah. So we are in the generative sound design field again, and what we are going to need again is something that makes a sound. So I'm creating another mallet synth. I'm not explaining this too much because this is less about the sound design part, this is more about the generative sequencing part now. So I'm just building a basic synth while I'm talking nonsense mostly. Or I try not to be nonsense, but who knows. So this is the usual way. We input a trigger, run it through a noise. And we also need the pitch, we need to convert it to hertz, and we need to convert it back to pitch again. And we are going to multiply here, so we create harmonics. And we need a knob for resonance. And we wanna mix these harmonics, and we're gonna output the result of the mix. And what we are going to do now is to make this into more stuff. That's nice like that. And okay, I can copy paste this patch. Like this. We do not need those guys again. We just need these guys. And once again. So we are going to have 3 harmonics. This is something like nodal synthesis actually. I need a cone here so I can route stuff from there. So the patch is somewhat organized. And sorry. I can plug this frequency in there and there. Sorry, there's something flying here. It's summer and it's hot, and these guys are everywhere. Okay. And this should actually work. Let's add the pitch, and if I hit play, we don't hear anything. Sounds like a mallet. Okay, this should be higher. It's maybe 8. Okay, this is fine for me. Like this. And that's all. Now we are going to create a sequencer, or something like a sequencer. So we have this start trigger, and we want to input a trigger, and we want to output another trigger. So we have a trigger out and a trigger in. And we are going to delay this trigger by a value, and for the delaying a trigger we are not going to use a delay because of partly because of it's interpolated, and also because of it could alias, so aliasing would destroy the trigger and we would lose some trigger signal. So we are going to use this guy, subtract the output, multiply, and we are going to multiply it by the change. And this way the output of this node, if we get a trigger and we set this to some milliseconds, we are going to receive another trigger on the output several milliseconds later. And we can modulate this trigger to gate node, and we can synchronize it to tempo. Actually, this is a 16th note, and if we plug this in, then our trigger is delayed by 1/16th note. And if we plug this guy into the patch, I'm going to call this member, because this is going to be one member of the structure. And if I play this now, it's delayed 1/16th note. It should be delayed 1/16th note. And if we multiply this by some value, then we can set the delay higher. So let's say 4/16 notes, which is a quarter note. So yeah, it works. And let me also multiply this. Like this. So that if I reset the transport, I do not want to have this another trigger, so this way it's nice. Okay, so this patch is going to be less random. It's going to have a structure, and we are going to input notes, and it's going to play them in cycles, and we are going to have different changes in rhythm and different changes in pitch. I hope this sentence made any sense, but you will see what we are going to do in a moment. So we are going to count the number of triggers that are coming in, and for that I'm going to use the increment node. And whenever a trigger happens, the incrementer will increment by 1. That's pretty simple, and we are going to modulo the output by 8. And we are going to use a switch here, a switch of 8. And we are going to add 1 to the output of the modulo, because this is now the result of this modulo operation is now between 0 and 7, and since the switch switches between 1 and 8, we need to add 1 into it, so it works alright. And now we can plug stuff here. And let me create 8 constants. I just pressed 1 above each flag. I select every second, move them to the left, and for demonstration purposes I do this like this. And if I hit play now, this was 1/16 note, 2, yeah, but maybe it's better visible if I put a scope here. And yeah, and I'm gonna plug this here. So if whenever I hit the play, the position of the trigger changes. So we are cycling through these delay times, and that's why we get a different trigger every time. Now we are going to create different pitches the same way. Use the same increment, and this comes here, and we can change this number to 6, and then we don't need the last 2. And we are going to output these as pitch. And the thing we want to do is to put a variable here. A variable outputs the value on its input. So it only refreshes its output value whenever a trigger happens. So if this receives a trigger, the output will change to the value that's on the input. So if we plug this here, then when the trigger happens here, our output will refresh to one of these guys. And let's say that we are moving between an octave and like this, something maybe 8 and 5. So actually this should sound pretty bad now. I mean, the melody should suck. But if we add it to this thing, it should work. So we get a different pitch each time we play this. And the crazy thing we are going to do now is to basically feedback the trigger into itself. So we are triggering the same thing. So this member will trigger itself from now on. Just add its output to its input, and this should result in an endless melody. And sorry, I forgot to connect the second input, but probably I will turn the track to mono in post, so it won't be disturbing or a part of it. So yeah, we created a random melody. So that's nice. What we want to do is to create a scale, and that we are going to do here. And the scale is pretty simple, so we are going to create an array again, and the input is going to be the read index, which is going to be a pitch input. We're going to modulo it by 12. And the output is going to be the product, or I don't know. We just simply add this array to the current pitch. And yeah, let's fill up this array. We need to connect it first, like this. And yeah, let's fill it up. I create a 0 input here, 1 and 1 like this. And I'm going to set the right index to 0, and now I'm going to input the numbers. Sorry, I'm clicking too much. So for the C note, I want to have C. For C sharp, I want to have C. For D, I want to have D. No, for D, I want to have D. For D sharp, I want to have D. For E, I want to have E. For F, I want to have E, because I'm always in E minor. For F sharp, I want to have F sharp. For G, I want to have G. For G sharp, I want to have G. For A, I want to have A. And for A sharp, that's the tricky part, that's why it's not an A. E minor, I want to have B. And for B, I want to have B. So this is my own scale now. I don't know, maybe this has a name, but I like it. I prefer it if there's more of a B than an A in the scale. So that's just my taste. So let me delete these guys here, and we are left with our scale. And yeah, if I play this guy now, so yeah, this is one part. I give it a bit of reverb, a bit less. And yeah, actually we can create another mallet, just like this. Use the same input, create a mixer here, add it there, and just use different numbers like 4, 12, 4, 12, 8, 5, 3, and 2, and minus 12, minus 24, minus 16, minus 18, and minus, I don't know, 8, and minus 22, let's say. And let's listen to this. This should be pretty different. And 5 and 7, so we don't need this and we don't need that. So let's listen to this. And we can also create a chord by creating one more mallet. And use the same trigger. And use the same pitch. We just want to add something to the pitch. Like four, let's say, or 5, or 6, or 5. Should be interesting. And to make it a bit more alive, we can play with a trigger. Like we can create a trigger to gate here. Use an LFO, modulate it a bit. Like, let's say between 0 and 200 milliseconds, which should be a lot. I probably won't go too high, so maybe this is only 20 milliseconds or less. And what we are going to do is to... Sorry. To use it like this. And what we can do still is to delete the bass notes and create a different bass. Whenever some triggers happen, we are going to change the bass, so we need an input, which is going to be a trigger, and we are going to need a clock. No, first an incrementer, which is going to be so we create a clock from the triggers, so we count the triggers, and we will use a clock divider, for which the incrementer can be thought of like a clock, and on every, let's say, 8th trigger, we are going to output a new trigger, and whenever this happens, we are going to change the bass note, and better, we need to increment everyone once again, so whenever a trigger happens here, we will... So whenever a trigger happens here, we will use the incrementer, we will count those triggers, and if I paste this switch here, and use a modulo, let's say 8 values, we can tell which direction the root node should move. And this way we will get a pretty interesting melody maybe. And we add this to the root node, and this is going to be... We used the 36 until now, so it should work. And we are just going to use this trigger and like this here, and there, and there. Like this. And this should be pretty interesting now. Yeah, so we can also create a bass part with some low frequency stuff, which is going to be a simple subtractive synth for the time being. And actually that should be the end of this session. The low pass comes here, it goes there. I move these guys a bit to the right so I have some space. Yeah, it feels much better now. Maybe I will use more oscillators. And yeah, this is going to be the volume. Actually, I'm going to use an ADSR like this, and I'm also going to use it for cutoff modulation, so I just use one envelope for this small synth, like that. And we are going to trigger this gate whenever the bass changes, so we need to output a trigger for this, but that's not a big thing. We are just going to output this, the change of this modulo, because that's a trigger. So trigger out. Cool. And I'm going to connect this to the gate, and I'm going to convert the trigger to a gate signal, so it should be fine, like, I don't know, somewhere there. And give it some attack, give it 0 sustain and some release, like that. And yeah, this should do it. And I connect this to input number 4. And let's listen to it. Maybe it's not that bad. only problem is that this synth has no scale, so that's why it sounded so bad. But now it has. And let's play it. And yeah, this can go on forever. So this is another take on generative music making. Actually, we only used one member, but we could have done it more complex, like using more members that trigger each other and then the melody changes a bit more. But maybe that's for the next part. Maybe next time we will create some drums even. But yeah, I hope this was fun, and I hope you like this patch, and yeah, thanks for watching, guys. See you next time, and subscribe if you like this kind of videos, and happy noding, and give Alpha forever a try. Bye bye.